Welcome to Unconventional. I'm your host, Bill Tessar. Unique stories from entrepreneurs that have failed, picked themselves up, been knocked down, picked themselves up again, traveled roads that few travel. It's about digging into the successes that people have found in real estate, financing, lending, and the like. Welcome to the episode of Unconventional. I don't believe where a person comes from determines where they're going to end up. Joining us today is a man who epitomizes this very statement, and his journey is super inspirational. You'll hear from someone who's gone from an extremely humble beginning to working at an early age on a farm, joining the military, starting his own plumbing business, and ultimately creating an incredible real estate development enterprise. His story is unconventional. I'm thrilled to welcome our guest, Brad Cook. He's the president and CEO and founder of Prestigious Rentals and Prestigious Construction. Welcome, Brad.
Welcome. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
You know, I think that there are people in the audience today right now that are adjusting their glasses and kind of looking in, squinting. And if you're doing that because of Brad's physique, you should be. Brad is jacked. He's jacked. And so what I normally like to do when I start this is I'd like to pour a little bit of our favorite whiskey, which is Macallan. And as you will find out shortly from my discussion, Brad is actually cutting down for a competition. And we're going to take his shirt off shortly. Just joking. But I am going to pour Brad some fresh agua, because I am supporting this next show by sponsoring him. He doesn't know that, but I am sponsoring him. I'm going to give him the underwear that you wear when you pose with a CV3 mark. And so when he wins, we get a little bit of coverage. It was interesting. We got to spend some time together last night, and when I sat down, it's hard to not be impressed with your physique. Like, you have paid a lot of attention to it. And as our night went on, I got to get some insight as to really how serious you are about it. Like, not just what you eat and how much you work out. Like, you monitor your caloric intake and carbs and proteins to the number. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you like that?
Oh yeah, it's just discipline. And that's part of the business. You can't have discipline and run a business. So it all starts with the body and the mind. And by doing that calorie intake and carbs and the protein, it really has disciplined me into the business part, where getting up and staying late and doing things is that I want to stay disciplined in that aspect. So it just helps with my career and overall as a person. I'm a better person when I'm training and I'm cutting or I'm doing my calorie intake and my carb intake than if I just went to McDonald's and ate a double cheeseburger, because I'm not going to feel good after I ate that, but I'll feel good after I ate a piece of grilled chicken, So
yeah,
so it's just.
Well, you had chicken parmesan last night. You splurged a little bit, didn't you?
I did. I had a cheat meal yesterday. It was great.
You called that a cheat meal?
It was amazing. So I really appreciate that. It was good. Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting. Some of you may know that I actually was a competitive bodybuilder, not one that just lifted weight, but one that did shows. And that was a long time ago. That was late 80s, early 90s. And we got to talk a little bit about some of those disciplines. I was blown away by the math around how you approach your day, from sleep to rest to workout, to intervals of eating, to what you eat and how you eat, and all of your supplements. I mean, it is a lot different today than it was when I was going through it, right? A lot different.
Yeah. I eat every 2 hours. I'll be in the middle of a project helping the guys, and I look at the clock and I'm like, oh, I need to eat. So
that might happen. Well, we're talking. Here comes the chicken breast
before I came in. But, it's dedication. And for me, I need it in order to strive in business. Everybody's different. But for me to be clear mentally and feel like I'm in good shape really helps attribute to my business, and it's helped me grow. to the point where I am today, and my success is ultimately because of discipline. If you don't have discipline in business, you're not going to make it very far. As Bill, you probably know, I mean, you're probably one of the disciplined people out there. So for me, working out and taking care of myself overall helps my longevity of what I'm doing in my career. So, you know.
Well, truth be told, I did go home last night after dinner and got ready for bed, took my shirt off, and oh my God, after spending a couple hours with you, I was like, all right, maybe a few extra sit-ups and push-ups just to kind of.
You look good. You look good. I mean,
that right there cost me like $4,000 for him to say that, like just so we're clear.
Yeah, he looks good.
But you know what? It is motivation for me too, right? Because like whatever it is I'm doing, I thought was a lot, but it tells me that there's a little bit more meat on the bone that I could kind of put forth. And I think what I took away from you last night when we were talking about your approach to health and well-being was that is kind of the center point for you to get going in business. And if you weren't working out and you're eating crappy, that kind of carries on to your day, and you just refuse to allow that to happen.
Yeah, you lose your ability when you're having to multitask and you're working multiple projects. You have to be on your cue. And the first thing comes with nutrition is your brain needs it to continue to their day in and day outs. So me, when I stop and I say, hey, I gotta eat, and I eat, I'm back at it right away, and I'm at the same mental clarity I was, versus if I don't eat all day, my energy level is going to be trash, and my mental state's not going to be where it's at because my brain has burned all that carbs, and you burn off the protein, and now you're just running off of fumes. So yeah, it's really important to pay attention to your nutrition, and it's really helped me in my business without a doubt.
Yeah, I think that what I recall, and I'll get off of muscles and carb loading and get into real estate here in a second. But what I remembered when I was doing it, eating every 2.5 hours, is that felt like a job for me too. I was a lot younger than you when I did it. And it was all part of it, right? People think about working out as being the tough part. For me, it was like just all of the planning and prep and actual eating throughout the day, which I think when I was doing it, it was over 7,000 calories. And I couldn't tell you the exact carbs and proteins because it wasn't that scientific back then, but it was a lot of work. And like just the fact that you have to think about, when we're done with this podcast, you're probably going to be about 15 minutes outside your window that you need to get some food, right?
Yeah, and then so for me, I start kind of thinking, okay, I know I'm over. As long as I'm within that 3-hour window, I'm probably okay. Now, if I've worked out, or say we're framing a house and I'm helping my guys, it's really important that I hit that 2 hours, because you're going to burn off most of that you ate for breakfast or recent 2 hours earlier, and you're going to start feeling it. And I'm not saying jack up on coffee and jack up on caffeine. I'm saying break open a lunchbox and eat some food, meal prep. So that's what's going to help you longevity wise continue to work, or even if you're in the office and you're working, being able to stop what you're doing, because running numbers all day in an office, or running budgets and ins and outs of real estate is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Not just physically but mentally.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to help both aspects. In my opinion, nutrition is the best way to help that. And with a good discipline regimen of cardio and staying active, keeping that blood flow. And your mind will thank you.
Yeah, and listen, Brad, I think those that are watching us will go, man, he spent a lot of time on the front end of this podcast on bodybuilding, and that's actually has nothing to do with bodybuilding. No. It has to do with the discipline of the health and well-being that actually carries on to how you've built a thriving enterprise business. Like, I don't believe, Brad, you would have actually been as successful as you are right now, nor will be as successful as you're going to be if you didn't have the discipline of your health and well-being the way that you are, because you have thought through the day, the challenges, the frustrations, and all the stuff that gets in the way of getting a job done. And I think just your health and well-being is carried you forward on that. And so I've probably spent a little bit more time on it. Not to mention the fact that you're as big as anybody I've been alongside for some time. So duly noted.
There's
right?
room. There's room for growth.
Yes.
You know, there's always room for growth, and you're never satisfied with what you did because you always want more. And it's the same thing that revolves in real estate. You could have 100 doors, and you're going to ask that person, "Would you like to have more?" And they're going to say, well, yeah, I'd like to double my portfolio. And so it's the same concept that you can transfer over anything. It just helps me lifting weights because I can say, okay, well, I just put on another 5 pounds of muscle, you know. So, well, then I essentially just put on another 25 doors of real estate. So that's how I kind of relate my business to my fitness, and it's helped me throughout the years. So
awesome. You know, one of the similarities we have, aside from the fact that you are in good shape and I used to be in good shape, is that we both came from humble beginnings. And I felt like my story was humble beginnings. And then I heard a little bit about yours. And I will say that it is a notch down. And I think some of the challenges were greater for you than they were for me. Did that provide motivation for you when you think about go all the way back to the beginning?
Well,
who you are today?
Yeah, you know, everybody has their own past, and some people have good past, and some people have not so good, and it's up to you what you do with it. That doesn't mean because you had a hard beginning that you don't need to try or you don't need to be successful. It means that you do need to try and you need to make a difference. So it's not just for your family; it's for you. So my upbringing really helped me respect the value of things. And without maybe that upbringing, I may not be where I am today.
The value because you didn't have things?
Yeah, so it's, you know, not having things, but more or less the poverty level that I had growing up. The success rate is probably 1 in 500,000 to say, coming from a trailer park that, you know, you're barefoot and just hillbilly, you know, going through it and coming out of it now 40 years old, looking back, it's like, wow, you know, like I've done it. And so I don't think if I came from a well upbringing, would I have the same dedication and mindset that I have today? And I don't think I would. I think I'd maybe not have anything, you know, because I know a lot of people out there that had a really good upbringing and now, you know, they don't really, you know, they're working to where they don't want to work, you know. So it really led me be the man that I am today for sure. So.
You started working at a young age?
Yeah, so I started working on a farm in the 8th grade, detasseling corn.
What is that? I don't know what that is.
So I lived in Indiana, the corn capital of the world, you know, pretty much. And the farmers would hire middle schoolers to go through the fields and they pull the tops off the top of the corn stalk and throw it on the ground. So the next year the corn would grow. So you detassel the corn by pulling the seed out of the top and throwing it on the ground. And what happens is the next year corn will start growing again because you detasseled it.
Wow.
So that was the concept back then. Now they have, equipment and stuff like that do it. But when I was growing up, that's what we did. We detasseled corn, and I think I made like $5 an hour.
Did you feel rich coming from, like you described, you came from a trailer park, you didn't have any money, barefoot, now you're making $5 an hour. Did it feel like because you were controlling some of your buying, whether it's candy or a hamburger or whatever, but having your own, did that make you feel good? Well,
at that time, it was more like, all the kids around me, wearing Jordans or wearing Abercrombie and Fitch or these high ends, and I wore grown Kmart, and light up shoes was a thing, so Route 66, but you got the kids that have the American Eagle flag on the back of their jeans, and I'm like, man, I would like to have those. So the only way that I could get those things is if I worked for it, I was fortunate to have a grandma that would get me stuff for Christmas, but, me going to work for something, to me was more awarding than somebody handing me something. So, I'd buy my school clothes with the money, I'd have maybe a movie, money for the movies, things like that. And so I respected the money, because once it was gone, that was it, so there was no going back and saying, "Hey, Mom, I need," it was go back to work and detask some more corn. So
Here's a crazy discussion point that you and I really didn't get a chance to discuss last night, but I was just thinking about it. One of my oldest friends that I grew up with ended up having 3 kids, about the same age as my 3 kids, and he found success in the insurance world as I did in the finance world, and we both came from a step above humble beginnings where you came, but still, lower middle class. And we had a long discussion over a few beers over how we have raised our children. And I've always wanted to give my children the things I never had, as did him. And knowing that there was always a risk that you're taking the fight out of your children that you and I had when we were growing up. As it turns out, I've been blessed, and my kids still have to fight, and they don't feel like entitled, but it was a risk. And we had talked about that. You have kids?
yeah.
How old?
11 and 12.
I'm guessing that you provide them with clothing and you take them on vacations and give them good private school?
Yeah, they have the life that, I wasn't fortunate to have, but then they also have the respect for it.
They do.
And so I've done a good job. Me and my wife have done a really good job raising them to respect things. And I think they're going to be really successful. I'm setting them up to be successful. I'm setting them up to, to understand work. And I think that's where society is getting away from. Nobody wants to work.
Yeah.
They want the money, but they don't want to put them to work. So I've tried to explain to my daughters, and because they see me working, and they're like, "Why do you work so hard?" And I said, "This is what it takes. Yeah. You want to be successful. You want to have things. Maybe this is what you got to do." And so they understand. And my daughter will go out and she will pull weeds. She will work. She'll take out the trash. She'll do dishes, and she'll do things just because I've inbred it in her. Her work ethic is everything. And so she plays volleyball, and she's a hard charger. And she's going to be a successful person.
She lift weights?
She actually does go to the gym with me, and lightweight, she's 12. Okay. So, yeah. But she'll get on the treadmill, and she'll give it hell. And, it's important that we teach our kids that now. So they're not just sitting on there with the iPads, just playing away with their life, So,
Brad, I need you to make a promise to me right now. When your daughter is old enough to date and she has her first date, and that's coming up, please call me. I'd like to fly out, and I want to be there when he meets you. I want to be there.
Well, I've already told her she can start dating
my dad.
When she gets out of college. When she gets out of college, she can worry about dating.
I used to say date at 28, but that didn't really work so well. But I want to be part of that. Hey, I think I know this, but any big challenges you had to overcome, and we're going to get to where you are right now, but I like the lead up. Any big challenges? I think the humble beginnings, I think how you were raised, right? I think that was a challenge that you had to overcome. But anything else you can think about, like post 13 years old working in the farm, having some jobs, then you joined the military, right?
Yeah.
And you spent a number of years there.
Yep.
Any challenges you had to overcome before you got to the point of saying, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a businessman, I'm ready to thrive?
Well, the hardest part is finding people you can trust. And loyalty goes a long way in business. Everybody knows that. And finding loyal people that you can trust to work for you. As I'm sitting here right now, I got 30, 40 people working, doing construction work. So I have to trust that my foremans and project managers are continuing to do what my values that I have in place for them to continue on while I'm not there. So it took me a while to overcome the worry of, okay, I'm leaving. Is things going to get done? And there was times early in my career that I would get back and I would not be satisfied with what had got accomplished. And the reason why I would was because I take photos from start to finish of every project. I'm on every job, and I'd see what the production was the time I was going. I'd sit them down and say, "Look, this is what we did on the last project, and this is what we did this project. And do you see an issue with that?" And 9 out of 10, they'll see it. So. That's the thing that I had to overcome, was the fear of actually being able to trust people. And it took me at least 5 years to find those loyal people, and now I have a really good crew of all across the board. I have you and Brando is really good to me and take care of me as far as if I need stuff. So it is a when you're in business and you're in real estate, you'll have the up and downs of the market, and having people that you can trust and rely on so you don't lose yourself is important.
Yeah, I found it interesting. You said something to me, and we're going to transition into today, but you said something to me last night, which I thought was like super telling. You said, I believe any developer, anybody that's in our business, if they want to be successful, they should learn a trade with their hands. Learn a trade. Learn something. Be a plumber. Be a electrician. Be a carpenter. But learn something. So when you're there on the job, you're part of what's happening. And you started out your career as a plumber, correct?
Yeah.
And built a fairly big business in San Diego as a plumber.
Yep.
Talk about that for a second.
So I started in San Diego. I believe it was in 2009. And I had a bunch of property management companies that we did service work for. CBRE was one of them, and a couple other large companies. And we serviced all their plumbing needs. And in the beginning, it was like, man, is my phone going to ring? And just constantly looking and trying to go out there. And Craigslist was big at the time, so checking Craigslist every day. And I think if you can correlate to that era in 2009, Craigslist was huge.
Yeah.
Especially in San Diego. I mean, any labor you were looking for or jobs you were looking for, gigs you were looking for was on Craigslist.
Yeah.
And that was my motivation at the time. I was like, I need to check Craigslist at least 3 or 4 times a day. And I need to send emails, at least 10 or 12, because the jobs were there.
Yeah.
And that's how I got it. I just didn't stop. I constantly was searching for something, and I found it. And so it really helped me. Craigslist
Built a thriving business.
Built
and then didn't you carry that over to where you are today?
Yeah. So in North Carolina, when I got over there, Craigslist was, I knew Craigslist was popping, and I was like, man, maybe the market here is this as well, and lo and behold, I ended up snagging a job off Craigslist. It was a big job, and that's how I got the funds to get started. So, and it's still there. People right now, if they're hungry enough, they can do it. And Craigslist is still popping. As far as I know, I don't do too much of that no more because I got my own things. But it's just all about how bad do you want it.
So you actually had a plumbing business in San Diego,
Yep.
and you had one in North Carolina.
Correct.
Yeah, and you talked a little bit about trust and loyalty, because what you found is when you weren't there in San Diego all the time, some of those people weren't kind of what you thought, right?
Yeah, so you get, like I said, the first 5 years was really hard for me. And being able to overcome people stealing from you or, because you could do all you want and vet people, but you don't really know who you're hiring until at least 6 months to a year later, because that's when the true colors start coming through.
Yeah.
So, and I had been doing so well in North Carolina, and, and I just got to the point where I can't babysit. I have to be able to trust people. So I ended up just moving all asset to North Carolina, and we ended up, getting into real estate.
Tell me about your first deal. It's a great story.
So my realtor, Joe Powers, came to me and he's like, I got this deal. It's on West Wingate, which is right behind the Walmart, which is about 5 miles from Camp Lejeune, the main gate. And it was a $50,000 deal.
Meaning you could buy for 50?
Purchase for 50. I was looking about $20,000 renovation. ARV at the time was like 120 for this, the house. It was a starter home, and this was back in 2013, I believe.
First one.
And so I got it, and ended up me and my wife. She's my girlfriend at the time, but she's now my wife. Did it together, and I had hired a couple people, subs, that knew what they were doing that I didn't know. Like tile. I'm not a tile guy, I'm not a sheetrock finisher, So I, outsourced that, and we ended up coming in, under budget, and I ended up making a pretty good lick off of it. And,
what'd you make, if you don't mind me asking?
I think I ended up making like $40,000 off of it.
First deal.
Yeah.
And you bought it for 50.
Plus I pay myself, I do the construction, so I pay myself a paycheck, You know,
that is worked into the ROI.
Yeah. So part of that construction, that 20 grand, my salary comes out of that 20 grand.
Wow.
So I'm an employee.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm a work employee. So I wasn't scared. I'm not scared to get my hands dirty. You know, a lot of people don't want to get dirty, and that's fine. For me, I need it. You know, I have to be involved, some aspect. Yeah, we I ended up closing that deal out. Joe sold it, and we ended up buying another one.
So when you did it, though, just pause for a second. Like, and I'm going to get to your superpowers because I think one of them is about getting your hands dirty, and we're going to get into that as we talk about today. But just pause for 1 second. You buy a home for 50, you put 20 or 30 in, you start looking at what other trades are doing because it's your property. You're watching them, you're in it, and you make $40,000 in a relatively short period of time. And are you thinking, oh my God, like that's kind of cool. I can do more of that. Or was it just like, that was cool?
I was just thinking, say it took 2 months total from, it's time you buy it, 30 days, and you got to wait 30 days to close it. Went under contract really quick, but you still got 2 months, and so when I had it done and it went under contract, I was like, wow, this is really easy.
This is really easy. I like this.
I 40 grand, it doesn't sound a lot to, like for most people, but people starting out, 40 grand is a lot of money.
It's a lot.
So, I saw the money, I saw the return, and I correlated it to my plumbing. Like, okay, well, if stuff's good in the real estate business, I'm set. That's my little side money. I got my plumbing business that's thriving every day. And that's your liquid coming in, the capital coming in.
Sure.
And being smart with that money is where I had the benefit. So where a lot of people would get a lot of money like that, they'd go because they've never had it. I never had that kind of money before, And so when I had got it, it's like I want to go blow it, But then I think, oh well, no, I need to buy another deal,
Good for you.
So you still treat yourself, but you don't treat yourself to where you've done too much.
Yeah.
So.
Bought your second home shortly after?
Yeah, bought a house, another flip after that, and so it went well.
Same sort of thing.
It was a little bit more of an ROI on it. I think we ended up making 70 on that deal. So it kind of as I got into the business, I learned really quick what the returns were on what.
Yes.
And how can I save in the construction side to make that ROI higher. And that's where I kind of benefited from real estate was I have a construction background.
Yeah.
Right. And so
goes back to learning a trade with
learn
your hands.
Learn a trade, and you should you need to be able to read a tape measure.
I like
that.
What I mean?
Statement. Like
it's a great statement.
You just have to be able to read a tape measure, and you'll get respect a lot more from your guys as well.
Yeah.
I know. For me, it is a respect thing. Respect goes a long way.
Sure.
And if your guys, your company, if they don't, the guys that work for you don't respect you, you're not going to go very far. And so treating them good and having the respect of being able to work. Hey, look, I'm not going to do anything. I wouldn't make you do something that I wouldn't do.
Yeah, I agree. There's an awful lot of people in your position today that have never swung a hammer ever, and they're really good at math, like you said, really good at the ROI part, and really good at kind of the finger pointing. Not so good at the getting in there and getting dirty. And like I think, and we're going to get to that in a second, but I do think that's a differentiator for you and your organization. And I agree with you. I think people that are working alongside you and not just for you do respect you more and do work harder for you and want to impress you because you're out there trying to impress them as well, right? How many of these properties did you go through before you go like, hold on a second, I might actually be a professional developer, a fix and flip, rehab investor with a side plumbing business and not a plumber with a side real estate business? Like, when did that time happen?
Yeah, so I was able to find good help for plumbing aspect, and to a point where I didn't have to be there every day, right? I wasn't doing service calls anymore. I wasn't doing those things. I was looking for real estate. And be able to have those people that you can trust to do those service calls and to do those things and continue to bring in capital is important. And so it was probably, after the third deal I did, I was like, man, this is because I'd average I'd see some of the competition, and they're averaging 6 months a deal.
You're talking about turn times?
Yeah, their turn time was 6 months, and it was a standard starter house, and I'm like, this can't be me. I'm not going to do that. So I think I had a niche on it. I had a niche on the market. I was able to see a piece of land that had a house on it, but also had 3 other acres attached to it that could be subdivided. A lot of people don't think about that. They would sell the house and the 3 acres and be done with it. Me, I see it more, okay, I can parcel this deal off and I can get 3 more deals out of it. Now, maybe do a construction deal, or maybe I just sell the land. Mm-hmm. I don't have to build on it, but, I saw that as a niche. As for everybody else, it's just like focusing on the house. They're not seeing the overall ability of the maximization of your ROI, So,
do you still have your plumbing business?
Yeah, we do service calls.
So it still brings in some cash flow?
We still do cash flow with it. I still have working relationships with people. They call me all the time. It's nonstop. So we still do government work, base jobs, base contracts. So we're continuing. If something happens with the real estate, I want to ensure I can feed my family. And I want to make sure my guys can feed their family.
I love that.
That's what's important to me is to keeping people employed.
Folks don't know this. I'm gonna share it. That 2 things that I think are differentiators. One of which is you have a trade and you're willing to get dirty on a job and you're willing to show them, and we talked about that. The other one is your speed to completion. And I think the 2 big killers of every development deal, every rehab, every reno, every ground up is the duration from acquisition to closing. Every single developer thinks it's going to be quicker.
Yeah.
And the cost it's going to take to do that. Every single developer thinks it's going to be a dollar amount that is lower than it actually is. And in your case, it's the exact opposite. Like, you have done ground up in under 4 months, correct?
Yeah. We have finished. So if you're on the project, it moves a lot better. If you're not paying attention to the project, it's going to drag out. And so we were just working on multiple, but we just finished a project and it took us 3 months, start to finish.
So what does that project entail? Like, high level?
It's a mid level, tile surrounds, tile bathrooms, butcher block countertops, LVP. This is a build, new construction.
It was a ground up.
1,282 square feet, 1,900 with the garage, 2-car garage attached.
In under 4 months.
Under 4 months, yeah.
That's unheard of.
Yeah, and it's just going into planning. If you don't have a plan, you're not going to do it. And if you don't have backup for your plan, you always need a backup. Say Bob the sheetrocker doesn't show up on Tuesday. Well, now you got Richard that can show up the next day. So, okay, you lose a day, but you don't lose a week or 2 weeks because Bob can't show up. So my biggest thing is if you tell me you're going to do something, I need you to follow through with it, because you're messing with the business side of it, Yeah. And time is everything in this. You know that. I mean, yes. Especially with the market in summertime. We're all working day in, day out, April, May, June, to get everything ready for the summer, because that's where our market is the summer PCS season. Marines coming and going.
Yeah.
So we're trying to load up on real estate and get it ready for sale by summer.
Last night we finished having dinner, and Brando and I went back to the house, and we were talking. I just said, like, one of the fascinating things about Brad is his involvement in the transactions and how quickly he gets from beginning to end. And he says, yeah, that our construction department questioned the cost on one of his construction sites, and his response was, you don't think I know what the cost of my construction are? And you want me to tell you what the answer is? Most people don't know 100% what the costs are. Like, we've looked at thousands, but you do. So I said to Brando, the next time that happens on one of his construction jobs, if someone has a question, run that back through me before we send him an email. I think we could sign off. Like, this guy is different. And the truth of the matter is the great majority of them are off. They're off on time and they're off on cost and they're off on scope. And I think it's refreshing to have someone like you that actually has got their arms around it in its entirety and is in it, right?
Yeah.
And here's a fun Brad Cook fact, which is I think you've done over 300 projects. Is that correct?
That's right.
Brad has never lost money on a project. Brad Cook has never lost money on a project. Only person in it with your type of resume that has ever been able to say it. And like normally in the back of my head, I'd call bullshit. I would. I actually 100% believe it, as much as I believe that you got 22-inch biceps. Yeah, it is amazing. Like you may not have made as much as you thought on some deals, but you've never lost money.
No, I mean, there's sometimes you have to do price drops.
Sure.
I mean, that happens.
Yeah.
But, you know, buying a property with enough meat on the bone is number one. If you don't have the meat that you need on a deal, it's not the deal for you. So every deal that comes across me is if there's a slight margin of error, I'm passing on it. So I want the nasty girls. Like we call them nasty girls because I want the ones that nobody wants.
Yeah.
And every investor's picked over because I know that the ROI on that deal is going to be higher than if I buy one that's already fixed up and I just got to put some paint on it and lipstick on it.
Yeah, you've showed me some of them.
So,
whoa, you
yeah,
get involved in that, but yeah, you like that.
And I do. And I like bringing the engineers involved. I like the whole process of that, you know, and taking something like I got a 1909. I showed you a 1909 historical house that has been is distressed. I mean, to say the least, probably needs tore down.
Yeah.
But you know, we're not going to. We're going to fix it, and we're going to make it great, and we're going to sell it. And so that's where I come in, and I have more of a niche in the market. Taking that house that needs more than most investors want to put into it,
Mm-hmm.
and making it happen. The process for me is more rewarding than the $40,000 reward, you know,
Yeah.
the money, you know.
Yeah.
So I've been to the point now where it's more about taking something and making it great, you know. And
Just beautiful.
yeah, making it livable.
Was there ever a point as you go from, you know, big plumbing business to now real estate construction and development where you thought there was a chance you might fail? Like where you sat down at the end of the day and thought you might fail?
I had bought some deals in Fayetteville. I don't think I talked about it yesterday at dinner. But I had bought some deals in Fayetteville, which is Fort Bragg, Army base. Yep. And it's about 2 hours from my house. And I had a real estate agent that brought the deals to me. They're like, hey, Brad, the ROI is there. And I looked at it on paper. It looked really good. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I didn't really know much about that market there. But I know what I'm capable of doing. And I seen the worst case scenario. We were still making money. So I jumped in. And it wasn't one deal. It was 3 deals. And so I had 3 crews out there. And we were still running things in Jacksonville, too. So we were both places. And I actually went down there for a week. And I made the drive 2 hours there, 2 hours back every day. So I'd get home at 11 o'clock at night. But when we were finished with those projects, we put them on the market and they didn't sell right away.
You're going, holy shit.
And I was I was a little nervous, and man, is this going to fail? Is this going to put me out? And I think at that time I was about 120 properties in on doing. So I had the experience, the product was there. And when Michael came through, it was a hurricane that flooded Fayetteville. That's why I picked those deals up, because they were distressed properties that had been flooded. So the return was there, but I was stressed because there were some properties that people didn't want to buy because they knew that, hey, this area had flooded at one point. It may flood again. But we just kept at it. I did price drop. I think it took me like 2-3 months to sell them, which to some people that doesn't sound like a long time. But for a military market, it's a long time. Usually you're at 7 days.
Did it end up selling to military?
Yeah,
personnel?
I ended up selling it to. I ended up selling all 3 of them. I'm not sure. Some of them were VA. They could have retired though.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them were just regular USDA loans or FHAs. But yeah, I was a little nervous, because I had
You get cash tied up
$500,000,
in it, right?
$600,000 out.
Yeah,
Which isn't a lot of money to a lot of people, but
a lot of money.
for a small mom and pop, that's.
Well, you have that, and you have your other crews, and you have your
Well, it's just not just 3 street projects. You got 6 more in Jacksonville.
That's right.
Or you got this plumbing business that needs working capital to maintain. Its bills are still there, the insurances are there.
we talked about it last night. When you have when you have people on payroll, it is amazing how fast every 2 weeks comes up. And I don't know if you pay your people weekly or every 2 weeks. If it's weekly, it feels like every hour you're writing a payroll. If it's every 2 weeks, every few hours. But I mean, when you're responsible for people and dependent on their financial wherewithal, it's like it shows up quick, doesn't it?
Yeah, oh yeah, it does. And payroll is one of the biggest costs. And so when you're working 6, 7 projects, and that 2 weeks comes up, it's payday.
Oh yeah,
and your guys are ready to get paid.
It's their favorite day and your worst day.
Yeah,
you're like, unless you're on that payroll, and then it's obviously not so bad. Has that ever kept you up at night? Like you have a big operation. I was just sitting here doing fast math. You started in 13. It's 24. You've done over 300 projects. That's in 11 years, 30 projects a year. Yeah. That's a lot of people, a lot of mouths to feed. And has there ever been that moment, like you go to bed, and we're going to talk about review preview because you and I are like that way, where you've gone, man, I got a lot of obligations. I need to keep this machine going.
Yeah.
No, not till you mentioned it, Bill. Thank you.
No, when everybody first starts, the stress level is up here.
Yeah.
And is okay. Payroll's coming. Did I submit my draw? Okay, because as you do more volume, you're spending more money, your costs are higher, so, the onesie twosies are all fun and games. When you're getting into 6 and 7 deals, you better have deep pockets.
Yeah.
Or a good lender that's going to take care of you on the financial side.
Yeah.
So when we started doing more and more deals, we were, of course, with lenders, and so ensuring that the draws were put in play, so your guys are paid, or you're at your materials cost, that because you think you spend $30,000-$40,000 in a month to get the materials and the labor. Well, you need to make sure your draws are scheduled, to where you have your rough in, your demo, there's a draw, and then you have your stage 2, your sheetrock's hung, and your draw, and then your final. So being able to, and that's what I impact to my guys. Hey, listen, you guys want to get paid this week? Well, yeah. Okay. Well, you need to get X, Y, and Z done. What do you mean? I say exactly like that. You did it last time. Why can't you do it this time? Yeah. And so
interdependent on the draw, they're going to sign off. In order for them to sign off, it has to be done. That money is proceeds. Yeah, I like it.
How bad do you want it?
I like it.
So that's always been my motto is to my guys too, is like, how bad do you want it?
Yeah.
You want it bad? Let's get it done.
Is there a sweet spot in terms of how many number of properties you're comfortable doing where you feel like you have control, you're not stretched, you're not you're always a little freaked out on the draw process, and you should be, but like you just feel like this is manageable before you start stretching? How many projects at one time?
I think the most I did was I bought that subdivision, and it was 22, and it was occupied. So this was a rental portfolio.
Okay.
And the person we were buying it from, and we had known that half the people hadn't been paying their rent, was distressed, and so when I bought the property, and I bought it with no construction budget. So we just got money for the purchase, because it was debt servicing was
knowing that you had some people that weren't paying, and that you're going to have
and that's where my wife came in. She's a property manager, so she does the eviction process.
She knows
she's on her game. I mean, in my area, or probably my opinion, anybody, she's the best at what she does.
Manages like over 800 properties, right?
That's correct. Yeah, she is an animal,
and she's heard every excuse under the sun.
She is tougher than I am. So yeah, thick skin. So with her, I knew we could do this.
Yeah.
And we got in there. We started fixing it up.
Yeah.
And addressing all the tenants' problems that had been neglected by the previous guy. And we ended up being really successful at it. And she does what she does. I do what I do, and it kind of works. But when I had bought that deal, I was over my head. I was like, I've done, at the time, I think I was probably in the 150, 200 deals, and so, and now I'm at 22 at once.
So you felt it. You felt the stretch a little bit.
Yeah. And, trying to navigate through tenants you better know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Especially on the legal side.
Yes, for sure.
So that's where my wife came in, and she was great. And my team came in, and we were great. And it was during COVID. So, you had to really tiptoe around.
Yeah,
you really couldn't. And luckily, we got everybody caught up.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, we had people that were locked in on a 3-bedroom, 2-bath paying $525 a month.
Wow.
And the market rent is $1,200.
Wow.
So it was the guy that owned the property, had owned it for a long time, and he was an older gentleman, and didn't really know the market. He just was collecting, collecting, and not collecting and not collecting.
Yeah.
And he didn't evict people. He didn't believe in that. So we had the opportunity to make a difference.
Yeah, that's great.
And so we did it, and now it's 100% occupied. And
You still own that?
Yeah, still own it, and they actually named a street after me in there. So I got my own street in there.
So what is it called? Brad Cook, or is
it's Bradley Nicholas Lane.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I was really.
I want a street name.
That was the only deal. That was we had to do that to do the financing for it. So we had to subdivide some things and
that's really cool.
Navigate the system, and we made it work.
That's great.
So, yeah, I'm kind of proud of that.
Yeah, you should be.
Yeah.
So today, where are you today? Like, what's got you excited? What are you working on? Like, what makes your heart pitter patter other than 7 meals every 2 hours and doing double bicep work?
Yeah. Just new construction, ground up. We started the journey a couple of years ago. I did one fully cash, and it was fine. It sold before it was done.
Fully cash meaning you funded it?
I funded the whole deal. Yeah. And it finished, and it was on the market. I pre-list everything. 30 days coming soon. And
you put a rendering when you pre-list it to show the person what it's going to look like that would potentially buy it? Or
most of the time, what I do is I'll build it and get the siding on it, get it dried in.
Okay.
And then I'll do a 30-day.
Got it.
Because I know when I get to that point of where, okay, we're 30 days out.
Yep.
I can really turn it up and make that completion time.
Got it.
So, it really helped with the funding part to do more.
Plus, you're so fast.
It's a science. It's like everything else you do in life. If you don't have a plan, and we've got it down to a science now where it's, foundation or survey, foundation, the framing, windows, doors, roof. It's just all a process that we've able to make happen.
Yeah. So ground up, you like that?
Yeah, I love the ground up.
How many doors do you manage right now of your own?
We manage around 50 doors right now.
Which is great.
A couple Airbnbs.
So with your flips, you said we're going to hold on to that one. We're going to hold on to this one.
Yep.
And building your portfolio.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
And then ground up, and then you still have reno projects right now?
Yeah, I have 1, 2, 3. We have 4 renos going on right now. They're fix and flips. One of them is a really distressed property that I showed you.
Yeah, I like that one.
And that one's going to take a lot of work. But we're up for the challenge, and that's where I'm at in life now is like, I want a challenge. And that's what really, not talk about bodybuilding or anything, but it's a challenge, And to challenge yourself is the most important thing, because if not, you get lost in the sauce. You don't, if you don't have any goals and you don't have anything to challenge you, you're really, what's your purpose?
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, you have to have a challenge.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I'd like to double my, I was telling you, I'd like to double my rental portfolio.
So 100 doors.
Yeah, I'd like to have 100 doors.
Okay.
I'd be happy with that.
You also have a really big project, if you don't mind talking about, like kind of like your dream 10-year, which I'm like super proud of you to, like, most people are looking over the next 2 or 3 months. I got this many projects. I'm going to add a couple doors and I'm going to keep doing that. But you actually have something that is a lot more strategic. And I think it's maybe a 10-year plan, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So we have a redevelopment in area on the area that I picked up during COVID. The return on that is greater than just saying right now I have a duplex and it's worth 250. Well, I could scratch that duplex and build a quadplex there, and now I got $1 million. So, and that's where I'd like to start. Phase 1, we call it. My surveyor's working on the whole plan, but I've already started most of it. I've already got the plans for it. And that right there is going to double my doors. Wow. So, it was able to survey the deal and make it to where it's going to be longevity and long cash flow too. So, it's definitely going to be a great project. I'm really looking forward to it. When we get all the logistics figured out, so.
I think one of the other things that impressed me about you, Brad, was that, and you were surprised that it impressed me, but I just want to share, is that you've done a lot of stuff with your own money, a lot of front ups. So there's a lot of developers that raise the equity with outside capital and then borrow the debt. So when you take a look at the transaction, they don't have a lot of their own capital in the deal. And they might parse out part of the ups, but you've always kind of led with what you believed in, which really is your hard-earned money, and put into deals. And you were actually surprised to hear me tell you that when we talked about it, like, oh, well, where does the down payment come from? Oh, they raised that. And you're like, what? Like, I think there's something to be said to standing behind a project with your own money, which you do. And you've managed to build up a nice little nest egg as you've been going through these transactions. And I think you should be applauded for that. One of the things I do, and I told you this, you're like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. But after we had dinner last night, I went home, and both Brad and I have a similar discipline in that we review the day that we just had and some of the opportunities that are going to present themselves the next day. And then as we start, we preview that day. So we preview and review what it is we need to do, what it is we've done, and what's going to carry over, and things that get us excited. The other thing I do is I do a SWOT analysis, and if any of you don't know what that is, it's like take a piece of paper and draw an X, so you have 4 quadrants, and SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats in the business. And so what I did was, after spending the evening and getting to know Brad a little bit better, aside from providing financing over the years, really on the personal level, is I did a little SWOT analysis. And so I want to share it with you. And you might go, yep, pretty good, or, oh, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But I think it's interesting to share. So under the strengths, I put discipline, body, mind, spirit, work ethic, hands-on, is not afraid of the dirty work, a big strength. Speed to completion on your projects might be one of your greatest strengths, and sticking with what he knows. You haven't dabbled in foreign lands and foreign projects and things that you don't have a high degree of confidence in, and I think that's a big strength. Weaknesses, clearly your bench press. He only bench presses 525 pounds. Like I would expect for a guy with your size, 540, so you can work on that. Truth be told, I didn't see a lot of weaknesses in your business model. And if I did, I'd share them with you. So I'm going to stick with bench press. Opportunities. I think you might be able to level up your buy price and apply the strengths for greater returns. Like we talked about, you look at the houses out here in Manhattan Beach and you just like shake your head. That's worth $3 million. That's worth $5 million. In the same breath, I think you can also argue that if you did dabble into bigger projects, then you're getting away from what one of your core strengths are. So that's a little bit schizophrenic in my thought, but I thought it was still worth sharing with you. And then threats, I think inventory levels, yet you've been looking for land opportunities. So I think you've actually addressed that. You've done this in probably one of the worst interest rate environments that we've seen in an awfully long time, not only impacting you in obtaining financing and what you have to pay for it, but in the exit and what people can afford when they buy your finished products. And I think I think that is significant. And so I'd like to toast you, Brad. I think what you've done is amazing. I'm proud of you, and I look forward to a long-standing working relationship.
Yes, sir.
God bless.